What's your number 3, Matt?
Number 3 for me is Super Mario World, which was on the SNES, which I had sort of the NES and had Mario 2 on it, which I absolutely loved. And to be honest, in this top 5, is a real hard decision between the two. Mario 2 is very dear to me because it was the first game I ever finished. Like, before that time, I'd played games casually and just never finished them, wouldn't ever imagine it. And I remember sort of one night having this particularly long session of playing Mario 2 and did it. And sort of like finished this level, and then this writing started coming down. And I was thinking, what's this? What's this mean? You know, what's happened? Oh my God, you know, I've completed the whole game, and it was just mind blowing. But then, sort of, the next step up when the SNES came out, and sort of just the change to Super Mario World, it was just incredible. Like visually, it looked stunning. You had things added to it, like playing with the other characters. You could play with Toad and Princess Peach, and so I think it's Princess Peach, isn't it? Yeah. On it. But then the Yoshis that came into the game, and being able to, I don't need to throw something at that enemy or whatever. I can eat him with Yoshi. And you eat something different, and you get like different coloured Yoshis, and it was just that. I think it's a good example of like what you were saying, like having a game that is so good to start with. I had the first Mario, that was really good of its time. Mario 2 for me was incredible. Mario 3 didn't quite hit the right sort of notes with me. I didn't think it looked as good. Like it was a bit beige for me.
It is when you play it. I played that. Well, having played it recently, you do notice that.
Whereas Mario 2 was reds and greens and really bright, vibrant colours, and then like it was a bit beige. So Mario 3.
But the SNES one took it to the next level.
Mario World, it was just stunning. Like all the characters added to it, and everything was stunning. And you know, you're there, and you know, boom, and this huge sort of bullet bill comes across, and you have to duck, and just I was absolutely captivated by that when that came out, especially because it was a brand new console coming out, and then that game with it, it was at that age. My God, I'm looking at the future here. This is it.
Which is bad.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy, but it really was. But even now, I love playing the game. I've got the little classic, and playing it on there, it's still, it feels the same as it did playing it then. I absolutely love it.
Are there any? And I hope this doesn't give any spoilers for your remaining top 5. Are there any platform games which that was in the modern day that you think are as good or have kind of given because I think platform games kind of with the newer generation consoles haven't been as strong.
No,
they almost ended, I think.
Yeah,
at the SNES. But are there? I mean, I think say games like Crash Bandicoot was a good game. A different way you're viewing from behind Crash Bandicoot.
Yeah.
You know, so it was a different one. But that Spyro was another one. You know, there was these games.
Spyro.
Yeah.
An amazing game.
Do you think there's any that were? I mean, from a competitive side, obviously Sonic was the main rival. But do you think there's any modern day platform ones that are as good? Because you're probably more into that style of game, I would say, than I am.
Definitely. I don't know really. So I've not been I've not really played any modern ones that I can think of, if that makes sense. There was a game that we played not that long ago called Adventure Pals, which was really cool, which was sort of more of an indie sort of independent sort of game, which was on Switch, I think it is. We've got that, and that was a really good game. It's sort of 2 boys and a giraffe, I think it is. It's a really funny sort of story, and that was an amazing game. What I don't like now with some of the games, I love some of the independent games that are made because they do some really wild sort of concepts in terms of, you know, they're much freer to create these really cool things. There seems to be quite a theme with a lot of them of making retro-looking games.
Yeah.
And I don't really like that. Make a game that is cool and is really playable and that, but sort of making an 8-bit game just because it's retro,
Yeah.
it doesn't really sort of sit with me.
Yeah.
But I've not really. It's a really good question because I think I need to look out some platform games. So I was just going to say the most recent platform game I played, which is a really old one, just because I've recently decided I'm going to start buying the old NES carts. McDonald Land, which isn't a game I ever dreamed of buying, sort of in the past, but it was dirt cheap, so I got it recently. And it's got some really clever things. Like it's got you have to the story is you have to find Ronald McDonald's missing cards, and it's a pretty basic platform because it's just a tie-in with McDonald's. But there's some clever bits where the card isn't always where you think it would be, or the card's sometimes on the bottom of a platform, and you think, "Where am I going to get that?" And that's on the bottom of the platform because I have to squat down and pick it up like you often do. And there are bits that sort of flip the screen upside down, so you're like down is up and whatever, so you get it that way and things like that. And there's some really clever little bits. And again, sitting there playing it, think, wow, I love this game. Like, it's so simple, but I really love it because the way they've designed some of these levels, it really makes you think.
It's funny us talking about, even with Paul last week, talking about some older games where I'm now starting to think, I mean, when I got my classic NES, I probably played it for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And then kind of put it away somewhere because there was a game on the PlayStation or whatever that I was playing on the PC. And I've started playing it with my son again, as I mentioned earlier, and it has made me go, oh, I don't think I've ever played that. And we start playing all these old games, and it is, like you say, it's just kind of makes you realise how far ahead technology was then, and how clever some of them games were. Like you and Paul were mentioning last week, like with cheat codes and things like that. And there was secret parts to a game that that you might not have seen on the screen, but there was a bit where you could go off screen and things like that. It's very clever. But the other thing, just finally, when we're talking about platform games and Mario, to wrap up on that, I think the difference as well in today's day and age is with Nintendo and with Sega, you had a mascot for each game as such, Mario, Sonic.
Yeah.
And I think that was the key thing. Whereas when it moved on to PlayStation under Sony and Xbox under Microsoft, they didn't have really a mascot as such, did they? And I think that's why.
You had them in the sense, I think, for like PlayStation, for me, you had Tomb Raider. Like you had Lara Croft and people like that, I guess. But it wasn't, like you've seen with sort of Lara Croft, it's not really aged that well. It was more of a gimmick rather than a sort of a well-rounded sort of mascot that would last for decades. You don't see Lara Scott in a different game because that brand is so strong. Whereas Sonic and Sonic still is in games, and you still it's all different games that are Sonic related still. They're a bit more under the radar because Sega isn't the same company it was before, but still very good. Definitely. What's your number 3?
Number 3, and I've only put it at number 3 because I don't want 2 sports games in a row, but I had to be clever about this. But number 3 would be FIFA 98 Road to the World Cup. Nice. I know you even liked FIFA 98 because I'm pretty sure we spoke about it. The FIFA franchise for me, you know how much I'm a football fan.
Yeah.
But 98 would have. I had a FIFA on the whatever it was. I think it was FIFA International Soccer or something like that. The first ever FIFA, whatever one that was. I think it was like 94 maybe. Yeah. I remember playing that, and they were like, you had the picture. You almost looked at it up the pitch, and you had all your little players running about.
Wasn't there a Euro 96 one?
There was a Euro 96 one, I think as well. But 98, I actually played on. Again, I mentioned him, Adam, who I grew up living next door to. I played it on his N64, I think, and it was so good. It was because I think that was one of the first ones as well where you played the tournament from start to finish as well, and it was purely focused on that, because the games back then you didn't have, like now with the databases on the FIFAs of today, which I do play. You've got every league team, you've got every international team, you've now got women's teams in it as well, which is great. But on 98, I don't know, there was just something special about it, and the soundtrack to it as well. Didn't you have
Chumbawamba?
Chumbawamba?
Was that in 98?
Maybe.
Sure
I think
we get knocked down, but we get up
yeah,
again.
I think there was an Oasis song in there. As a complete package, and you felt like this is the difference, I think, with FIFA games now. It's more about the online gaming, I think, rather than the career mode or whatever. But with 98, you felt like you were completing a game if you made it all the way through.
Yeah.
But what was good, you could do the multiplayer thing on it. You could pretty much assign as many players as you wanted. So if you had, like we did at the time, there was probably 6 to 8 of us that would go around Adams, and it would be our turn each game, and we'd play it out through the groups and then into the knockout stage as well. It was so good. But as a franchise as well, all the games have just... They did have a little bit of a wobble, and one key note for me, it didn't make the top 5, but there was a Pro Evo, I want to say 2009 maybe, that was it took over FIFA, and FIFA went for a real slump. But Pro Evo 09, I think it was, definitely was one of the best ones. You could select 4 teams, and then the computer would randomize your squad out of them 4 teams, and then play. You would play against someone like your friend or whatever. They would do the same. You'd pick 4 teams that you thought were kind of had decent players that it might pull from, and it could be international, it could be league. It was brilliant, but I think then it always came back round to FIFA upping their game again and getting over that little wobble. But yeah, FIFA 98 for me. That's coming in at number 3, which is probably a surprise to many.
No, it is. I was expecting that to be your number 1, FIFA. But FIFA for me, I'm not a huge football fan, but it's exactly what you said then. That sort of participation of a group and sitting around with a load of mates and just playing like tournaments and taking turns and all of that thing. And that's my sort of memory of FIFA, definitely. Yeah. And just that you didn't have to be a football fan because it's just a really good game and you just got into it. And I think around that time as well, there was a real buzz about like the World Cup and stuff like that, and the team we had, and it that added to it, didn't it? It added to the whole mood of the game.
Yeah, and they never done a kind of standalone tournament one, because I remember the next tournament would have been Euro 2000. And I'm pretty sure, if there's anyone listening or watching that wants to correct me, they can. But I'm pretty sure from then on they were kind of almost like add-ons.
Yeah.
Get it as an add-on rather than it being a standalone game. Because I'm pretty sure from after that, the kind of FIFAs went more in the league club team direction with that as a bit of a side note. And certainly when we went into kind of more online platforms, you could then add it as an online download to your game. But yeah, that's my number 3.
Thank you for listening, Transmission Over.